Yo, welcome to another episode of the Play Callers.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the interactive sports talk radio show. I am one half of the dynamic duo, as always, Stephen Boss, joined by my co-host.
As always, your boy Cool McCain.
So apologize for the late start for those you joining us live on YouTube tonight. We did have some technical difficulties, but hey, this is the joys of doing a live show, right? So it is what it is.
Absolutely.
So do me a favor, guys. If you're tuning in, go ahead and just click that subscribe button below, and that way you'll make sure you get notifications. So even when we do have days like this, you'll know the minute that we go live. So cool, man. We know we got a lot to talk about tonight. Got a little you want to talk a little bit of baseball tonight. We got some, always some football news going on this time of year, but something that's not usually going on this time of year. The NBA playoffs. I actually get to watch a Lakers game on my birthday. That's like the only time this is ever going to happen in my entire life. So pretty excited about that.
And speaking of you being able to watch the Lakers game tomorrow on your birthday, um, why don't we start off with our thoughts on the NBA playoffs through the first week?
Yeah, so I will start with this Lakers and Blazers series. So I know a lot of people out there are mad right now because we have a couple of viewers who would like to get on here and give me a hard time anytime that something happens with one of my teams, and that's cool. That's what sports is about. But I know they were hoping and wishing and praying that we were going to be down 0-2 come Friday night, so they could get on here and give me a hard time. And I know this because after game one, my phone was blowing up, like nonstop messages from people. Oh, your boy's trash. Da, 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 da. I ain't saying no. That's okay. Just we'll see what happens. Well, game two, the Red LA showed up. They decided to wake up. Now, I don't think we're gonna go out there and blow Portland out every game. I don't think that we're going to win three straight games against Portland. I think that game three will be real telling of where this series is ultimately going to go. I do still expect it to be a pretty competitive series. And I've always kind of felt like we were going to probably win this series in 6 games. I haven't seen anything that changed my mind about that. So, the thing that I liked the most about the game last night was the fact that Anthony Davis is really starting to step into the role of saying, "This is my team," or as we like to say, "This is my team now. Look at me, look at me. This is my team, LeBron."
Well, I'm going to start off the Denver Nuggets. We've had 3 games. We've decided to play one game. Um, Today, apparently, we didn't realize we had a game. And the score was embarrassing. And if you're a player on that team, if you're a coach, if you're a fan, you should be pissed off. If Denver does not come out and win game 4, the series is over. You have no heart. I'm disappointed. I was under the false indication that you had gained some toughness and some experience from playoffs last year. Boy, was I wrong. It's okay. Sometimes you're wrong about your team. I'm disappointed as a fan. I don't know how many other Nuggets fans are watching, but if you are, I know you're disappointed. Your phone's probably blowing up with people getting on you. I've gotten a few messages myself. All I've been able to do is send back a shaking my head or a sad emoji. I have to take it. Um, when you decide that you want to be an NBA player, when you decide that you want to put on a jersey, go out in the playoffs and try to win and do what's necessary, you need to come every day prepared to do that. The issue is when you don't show up multiple games, you will not win. I've watched several times Jamal Murray drive into the lane and make a bad pass. I watched Jokic make passes. There were times in the game I wanted Mason Plumlee in instead of Jokic, how bad he was playing today. And I'm concerned also with our coaching because I'm concerned that if some guys are not playing well, the coach is not trying to make adjustments, trying to switch things up and try to get a better lineup in there to get some more energy into the game.
Yep.
Honestly, I can tell you right now, even if we win this first round, if we come out like this in any game in the second round, will be home quickly. They've got to rebound quickly. They've got to prove to me as a fan, as a supporter of the team, that they're in there to actually try to go deep in the playoffs. I never had false expectations of a championship for Denver this year, but what I saw the last two games, man, nah, we can't win another game playing like that. So either you guys are gonna get some heart and come out and play, or we're gonna lay down and get smacked two more times and we'll be going home. So for me, this has been a disappointing series for me. The bubble itself has been pretty just average for Denver, so I'm really not surprised, but I was just hoping for better.
Yeah, the thing is, I remember I didn't get to watch your first game, but I saw the score and I saw that Donovan Mitchell basically went He-Man on it, and they still lost. So I was sort of thinking, man, if they got what was it, almost 50 points out of him,
It was
and
like 57 or something.
yeah, I mean it was ridiculous. I mean he basically just put the team on his shoulders and tried to carry them, and they still lost. So I'm thinking like, man, this series is over. There's no chance that they even have. If he's put up that kind of effort and they're still losing, it's a wrap. And for them to then come back and win two straight games, and then, like you said, for you guys just not even show up today, um, I'm a little bit in disbelief that y'all really have collapsed that way. It's actually really shocking to me. After game one, I was feeling like Utah will be lucky to win one game in this series, and now we're talking about Denver might be lucky to win one more game. So it's kind of crazy the way that the momentum shifted on that. But I think it also speaks to how weird this whole bubble thing is and how that's changing the whole dynamic of what we normally can count on with the playoffs because that home court advantage isn't there. So it's definitely an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think they got Mike Conley back today. He actually hit 7 of 8 threes. Not something he's going to be able to replicate. But I'm not concerned with the loss because you never win all the time. I'm concerned with the lack of just competitiveness, especially in this last game. That's not something that you can, turn around. You go out there and you get beat 2 games in a row by 10 points or so, whatever. You lost, they outplayed you, had a good stretch you couldn't come back from. But I'm not even going to tell you the score of the game today because I'm not ever talking about that score again. Let's just say it was really bad, and quite a few more points than we scored. But you have to compete. You just have to compete. You have to, as a coach, you have to be able to say, you know what, my normal lineup's not working. What can I go to as maybe something to shake things up? You got Bobo sitting on the bench. He's a kid that, pretty athletic, kind of still raw. But I mean, the way Jokic was playing, why not take him out, put Bobo and Plumlee in, see if they could, run, make some things happen. You got to switch things up. You can't sit there with something that's not working and say, "Oh, I'm just going to continue to do this and hope that it works."
Right.
It's disappointing.
Speaking of some surprises, I didn't necessarily expect that Oklahoma City was going to win this first round matchup. I thought Houston was a little bit better team, so I did think they would win the series. But I've been a little bit surprised by how much better Houston has actually been. I really thought those two teams were a little bit better matched up than they are.
Yeah, when I look at that, I just really think that the issue is you have one team that has a lot of playoff experience, a lot of veterans, guys that have kind of been in playoff mode for a while. And then you have another team that has, a couple of guys, and they rely on a lot of young guys or guys that don't have a lot of playoff experience. And I think that that's coming into play when you look at the fact that, again, you're in a bubble. So your role players are going to be more consistent.
Yeah.
Normally, when we're talking about basketball this time of year, we're talking about your role players are good at home, not so good on the road. But now it's kind of you're always at home or you're always on the road, I guess, depending upon how you look at the bubble. So you have more consistency from those guys besides your stars. You look at the fact that Westbrook's not playing, and they're still going out and winning games without him.
Yeah.
So you would have to assume that you can bring Westbrook back to what you're doing now, and he's going to at least add another dynamic. So I'm actually surprised at what Houston's doing without Westbrook. I did think those teams were matched up a little bit, closer than they have shown. But hey, man, that's why we play the game. And also, another team that's not necessarily surprising me that they're winning the games, but just how definitively they're pretty much doing it is Miami and Indiana. Miami's pretty much handling them.
Yeah, that's another big shocker. I really expected that to be a competitive series, and it's not looking very competitive at all right now. Miami, like you said, they're just basically treating them like redheaded stepchildren out there. They just do whatever they want to them.
Anytime they want, anywhere they want. It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of redheaded stepchildren, one that's not that surprising that me and you both expected is the way that Boston is treating Philadelphia. That's going about how we expected with the injuries and everything that Philadelphia's had. So I'm not surprised by the outcome of that. I'm not surprised by the way it's going. Boston is clearly the better team. But man, if you're a Sixers fan, to go from the hope that you had a couple years ago when you really thought this young team was starting to gel, they were starting to do something, you really thought you were a couple years away from competing for a championship, and now it's almost like you might as well just blow it up and start over. It's kind of crazy to think how that team has gone to that point, because as currently constructed, this is a team that can consistently make the playoffs, but they're not winning a championship anytime soon.
Well, I think your problem is you don't have the JJ Redick type player. And understand JJ Redick's not a guy that's going to go out and dominate games, but he's a guy that you pay attention to. He's the equivalent of a speed wide receiver in football. He's a guy that you have to pay attention to because you don't want to leave him open and allow him to get hot and stretch the court. So you're always paying attention to him. So when you don't have that aspect, you have a lot of guys that crash or shoot a decent but not really good percentage from three. So you're not as worried about that. You're more compacted into the lane a little bit more. You're more trying to stop the short range shots and the drives, and you're not as worried. You're more fine with giving up the long range shots. And you think about a couple of years ago, he was missing from the team now. From that team, also Jimmy Butler. And the big piece they brought in, and Al Horford, is not a fit for this team. So I guess my thing is, that between Embiid and Simmons, they're very talented young men, no doubt about it. But injuries playing a big part, and I will give Embiid some props. I was actually watching a little bit of that game up until about halftime before we came on. And Embiid had 22 points and 10 rebounds in the first half. So he's out there playing today, and they were in the game at halftime. Obviously, we're on the show now, so we're getting to the end of that game, so I'm not exactly sure how it's progressing. But I feel like, for them to win games, not the series, but for them to win games, Embiid has to go out there and basically be Anthony Davis and LeBron James for them to win games right now. And he's a guy that actually can do it because he was making threes as well as rebounding and being a big man. So he has the ability to do it. He's healthy, so he can, he can achieve that. Just not, I think, 4 games. And that's what it would take for them to win the series. So I think that Tobias Harris, he's got to learn how to play better. He's got to be an alpha dog on that team. They have to figure out a way to get out from under the Al Horford contract, maybe trade him to someone who could use his skills. Because at this point, he's more like a backup center or play with a stretch type center. He's not a good fit in Philadelphia. That was a poor idea when they did it. I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not, but I know me and you talked about that was a bad idea. So there's a lot wrong with that Philadelphia team, a whole lot.
So it's still a relatively close game. I got the NBA website pulled up on my phone over here. It's 87-81 with about 7 minutes left in the fourth with Boston up. So
and Tatum was having a bad game too. So it's a perfect storm for them to try to pull out the win. They can't win tonight though. It's going to be tough on them. I mean, even if they do win, I think it'll be tough. But it'll be tougher if they can't even get a win tonight.
Yeah, but I think a series is kind of on the opposite end in terms of how fans might be feeling about it. Is this Brooklyn-Toronto series? I mean, obviously Toronto is just dragging Brooklyn right now. It's not even, those games aren't even competitive. Yeah. But the fact that if you're a Brooklyn fan and you're getting to the playoffs and you're getting these young guys experience in the playoffs, knowing that you're going to get your 2 stars back next year. That's going to make you feel pretty good as a Brooklyn fan, even though you're getting absolutely dragged in the playoffs right now.
I mean, if you're Brooklyn, man, not only are you getting 2 stars back, you're probably getting 6 players that are not playing right now back.
Yeah.
You're getting like half a team back. So you even be in the playoffs, like you said, I thought Brooklyn was going to come out and be competitive in this series just because they're young, a lot of fresh legs, a lot of hungry guys, really no expectations. But Toronto was pretty much came out the same way and just smacked them. Like, I didn't expect Toronto, honestly, from game one to come out as aggressive as they did, because, I felt on the show last week, I felt that was a series where Brooklyn had a chance to, win a couple of games and even possibly, win that series. But after seeing the first game, I was like, well, I was wrong there. But I tell you, man.
I don't say this to take anything away from Kawhi Leonard, because he's obviously one of the best players in the NBA right now. But I think that a lot of people were so focused on what Kawhi did last year in Toronto that I really don't think that Nick Nurse got the credit he deserved for the coaching job he did in the finals last year. And what he's been able to do this year with Kawhi leaving, and the way that that team has been playing, even in the bubble against some of the top teams, it's obviously he's a really good coach. And I think people will need to start recognizing just how good of a coach he really is, because I think that he didn't get the credit he deserved last year because of Kawhi, and he's just doing a fantastic job with that team right now. So give him props to that.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the team's pretty much, the second best team in the East. Obviously, it's going to be harder without that star to get back to where they want to get to and try to win another championship. But you have to at least look at them and say that there's a possibility that if they were to be able to match up with Milwaukee, especially the way Milwaukee played in game one, that they have that they could possibly win. So, speaking of Milwaukee, they came out the first game, kind of did the same thing LA did, just kind of, they didn't play like themselves. They laid a duck, kind of stunk it up and lost. So then the whole narrative was the same narrative that they were talking about the Lakers. Oh, Milwaukee can't even beat Orlando. I mean, what's his name? Vujacic or whatever his name is, their star. He had a really transcendent game. Props to him. And, Milwaukee just got caught, I think, sleeping. They kind of just did the same thing I think LA did. They just kind of limped into the playoffs and they weren't ready for that change in intensity. Then you came up against somebody, smacked you around a little bit, and then, Giannis said, okay, it's not happening again. Giannis came out and, did what needed to be doing did what needed to be done in game 2.
Yep.
Now you're looking at, game 3 for them is going to be pivotal tomorrow as well, because you want to kind of assert your dominance. You want to try to get rid of this team in about 5-6 games so that you can rest up a little bit, because these games are coming back to back. You get a day off and then you're playing. Another thing I am loving about the playoffs, it's constant. You're getting 4 games. I'm loving it.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, that series I feel like is pretty much over. I would not be surprised if the Bucks sweep them from here in. But the LA series is a little bit different because, as we've said a couple of times already on the show, Portland's not your typical 8 seed. Orlando is a typical 8 seed. So that's one big difference between those. So I think, but like you said, it's true. I think that both teams, because they did clinch the 1 seeds pretty early on, they both kind of went into just like chill mode. And they came in a little bit rusty. And then, I know in the Lakers-Blazers series, it was a matter of Portland had came in, they had been having to play just to stay active. Then they had to win the play-in game. So for them, they came in, there was no cooling off period. They were ready to go. Whereas, the Lakers, they were like, whatever. I think that Milwaukee was only slightly different. It wasn't just rust. I think they literally just took Orlando lightly. I don't think the Lakers actually took the Blazers lightly. I think they just came in sluggish from not really applying themselves for a good couple weeks here. Whereas Milwaukee, I think they just underestimated them. But they made sure that they didn't do that in game 2, and we saw what the result was.
Well, you got to remember this too. Chris Middleton didn't play well in game 2. So there's still a lot of room for improvement for Milwaukee. So if Giannis doesn't have a monster game and some other guys don't step up, they may not win game 2. So they're not playing at full. They're not playing anywhere near their full capacity. So if they come out in game 3 and they're not ready, and some of those guys don't step up, then you could see, Orlando winning another game. I don't believe they'll win the series, but the more they stretch it out, the more I think you start to expose some of the problems with Milwaukee until they can get themselves in a better rhythm. So I think if Milwaukee can get this series over, get some extra days of practice in instead of games, kind of work on the things that they need to clean up, they're putting themselves in a better position. They don't want to get into a 6-7 game series. I don't think they'll lose it, but just the fact that you lose the rest time and the practice time, you kind of want to have that, especially since they limped into the playoffs, not playing the best that they could play.
Yeah, now the series that I actually picked last week as a series I really was looking the most forward to so far is living up to the hype that I have for it, which is the Clippers and the Mavericks. That series is tied at 1. They're playing tonight, game 3. So it will be interesting to see who takes control of that because so far, neither game was a like a true blowout, but you had clearly one team better than the other in each game. So it will be interesting to see how game 3 plays out. I'm kind of anticipating that as these teams get a little bit used to each other, that these are going to be some really tight games down the stretch. And this is the one series that I still think if one's going to go 7 games, this is the one.
Yeah, for me, the funny part is game 1, Dallas lost, their star. He got ejected. In game 2, Paul George was on the floor, but he wasn't really on the floor. So I think you've had 2 games where both of them have had their secondary player just not be there. One for, being ejected, and one just for playing a really poor game. So I think that their game today is going to be, tonight, is going to be a game where you kind of see everything kind of settle down. Everyone should be available. Beverly's not available, so that's going to be something that's going to affect the Clippers because it takes away one of their elite wing defenders. So now you put a little bit more on Kawhi and Paul George. One of them has to guard Doncic now. So that, that could affect them a little bit. But Paul George and Kawhi just have to come out and play. Don't worry about it. Paul George, you had a bad game. It is what it is. People talked about, oh, you're not really this, you're not really that, whatever. You just got to show them. I think that, to me, the Clippers are still the team to beat, but I do see that this could go 7 games. If you're the Clippers, your biggest advantage right now is there's not a lot of playoff spirits on that team. Porzingis, he's a guy that hasn't been in playoffs a lot because he was with the Knicks before. We all know about the Knicks. Yeah. And then when you talk about, a lot of the other guys on their team, there's not a lot of playoff experience on Dallas. So the Clippers have that advantage. They need to use it. They have Montrezl Harrell back now. They have Lou Williams. They have pretty much everybody but Patrick Beverly. You just got to find a way to make it work. Attack. They need to play their style of basketball. Don't get over caught up in the 3. Attack the goal, man. Take the ball to them. Use the advantage of the athleticism that you have in some matchups and attack. The same thing that LA needs to do, just attack. Don't worry about the 3-pointers as much as attack with the other LA team.
Yeah, so it's a lot of interesting basketball going on right now, man. And this is just the first round, so it's definitely been fun to watch. We talked about last week. It was the thing we're going to be interested to see in these bubble playoff games was how well do the role players who normally only play well at home during the playoffs, how well were they going to be able to step up and play? And what we've seen in a number of games already is stars maybe struggling a little bit and role players stepping up and winning games for teams that they otherwise wouldn't have won. So that's been kind of a really fun aspect of it, is not really seeing those guys go up and down, but actually just watching some of these young guys be able to blossom and be consistent throughout, instead of playing well at home and then playing like crap on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a comment. Forget all the formalities and just give Brown the chip already. I do see that we have someone else that follows the Steven Box train of thought for these playoffs.
Hey, man. LA. And we're talking about the real LA, not that fake team over there playing
Hmm.
Dallas.
I tell you, man, Dallas doesn't really look like a 7 seed right now either. So
Yeah.
this is something we've said, for a couple of years. And no disrespect to the East, because there are some good teams in the East, but the West is stacked. So the problem is that when you're playing the 7th, 8th seed in the West, especially in the shortened season, you're not really playing a 7th, 8th seed. Well, I mean,
Right.
technically you are, but you know what I mean. You're playing a
Yeah.
team who actually can compete with you. So that's going to give. It's a good and a bad thing. Good thing is it's going to make you have to play more competitive the whole time. I guess, negative side of it is that you could place yourself in a position where essentially, you're battered. You've had a lot of tough games, so you could wear down quicker. So good and bads to it, but it is what it is if you're in the West. And I think they're going to be more prepared to come out of the West than probably the team to come out of the East, just because of the rest aspect.
Now the question that we have to ask is, so I see RIP right over here. He says give Bron the championship. So the question is he a Bron fan or is he a Lakers fan?
Well, if you look at the comment, it says give Bron the chip. So it says to me he's a Bron fan.
I mean, that's what it says to me too. That's why I'm saying we need a little clarification because to me the reason why I think the LA really has a good chance this year, and I think Game 2 against Portland really demonstrated it. They don't need to shoot the ball great. They just need to shoot decently. Because the way they play defense, if they can just shoot decently, there's not very many teams that are going to be able to beat them. They don't need to go out there and shoot or be as efficient on offense as a lot of other teams in the league because nobody else is playing that kind of lockdown defense. So that's, to me, what gives them a big advantage over almost everybody else in the league right now.
I say this is the killer about what's happening with the Clippers right now, because you got 2 elite wing defenders, and you got Doncic just kind of having a field day. And it's like, bro, y'all can't. And I'm not saying it to the extent of like, oh, shut him down, he's not going to gain any points. But he's pretty much got free round in that court.
Yeah.
And one of those guys need to just take that and say, you know what, man, 2 games, this dude is out here doing whatever. The rest of these games, we're not having that. You can have you score 70 points in your first 2 games, and that's all wonderful in your story right now, but it's about to stop. And somebody's got to take their responsibility and make that happen. That's the difference to me between the 2 series. If Doncic continues to do what he's doing, it's going to put a lot of more pressure on the Clippers. You've got shutdown defenders. Use them.
Yep.
Somebody needs to take it up. Let's do it.
Yep. Go old school, man. That's how cats in the old school used to do it.
Right.
We all just saw the Last Dance documentary. Somebody going off. What NJ do? Hey, I'm finna take him. And the discussion is over. He done.
Oh yeah.
That's that old school. So I think we covered all the series. I don't think we left any series out. So obviously we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the draft in terms of who we see going where and all that kind of stuff. But what are your early thoughts after the draft lottery?
So the quickest way for me to sum up the draft lottery is a meme I saw earlier. It was somebody with a New York Knicks jersey on and the Will Smith face from when Jada was talking about entanglement on the red tour thing. The sad thing about it is, if you're the Knicks, bro, you should already expect what happened. I think a couple of teams that should be excited, of course, is team who got the number 1 pick, and the Hornets at 3. Golden State, I think you're relieved that you just got to 2. I think they could have dropped as far as 3rd with the worst record, so that they got to 2 kind of is good for them, because I think the number 1 pick is Anthony Edwards, the kid from Georgia, and he's basically a shooting guard, small forward, and they pretty much got those positions covered. So I think that works well for them. The Hornets should be excited. The fan base here in Charlotte, they get a chance to get a really good player. Early reports are that it's probably going to be LaMelo Ball. They could use a guy that can has the height, size at the 1. Maybe he can play along some of their other players and guard some of those shooting guards that are a little bit bigger for Graham and Rozier. So maybe he's the guy here. Obviously, you got to be looking at a big man, probably Wiseman, if you're Golden State. So those top three teams, they kind of, they all did well. I think it's just a matter of making sure you get the right guy that's available. Because I think the Knicks have like the 7th pick, I believe.
Eighth, I believe. I think it's 8.
Is it 8th? But yeah, you got to go out there and you have to play. You have to want to get people there, because what we're finding out is through the draft, sometimes you're getting a really good player that's transcendent, transitional, helps your team become really great. And sometimes you're just getting role players or guys that are okay.
Yeah.
You got to build your team through the draft and free agency. And the problem is no one wants to go to New York. So you're going to have to break that before you can really make that team better. You can draft all day, but you got to bring in players who want to be there to mentor the young guys. You're not getting that there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the one big question mark I have, because I pretty much agree with most of what you said, so I'm not going to repeat everything you just said. But the thing that also stands out to me is, in looking at Golden State at 2, I'm not sure that they're actually going to draft somebody. I think they're going to try to package that number 2 pick and trade it. And they're going to try to see if they can get another star to come out there, because that seems to really be their philosophy. They want to try to stack as much talent. They know they've got an opportunity to win right now. And, you bringing in a rookie, no matter whether that person is a fit for what you want or not, bringing in a rookie doesn't necessarily put you above the Lakers or the Clippers right now out in the West. So I think that they are definitely going to be looking at the possibility of trying to acquire somebody, and they're going to use that 2 pick as bait.
I haven't thought about that, but my thought process is also very simply this. So, yeah, you're going to be bringing back Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. So you're going to move Draymond Green from being a guy that offenses and defenses are focused on, taking him out of the play, to him being what he's best at, being number 3 option.
Yeah.
So you're also going to, bring in Andrew Wiggins with the hopes of him being a reclamation project there, that you can get to fit what it is that you want him to do. If you look at that, what you need is a 5. What you have there at Golden State, you don't have a starting caliber 5 right now. But if you can go out and you can draft a James Wiseman, or if you have your eye on someone else instead at that position, or if you maybe can trade back, to the mid-first round and maybe acquire, someone else to be like a 6th man to help out, there may be a possibility. But I would say, if I were Golden State, obviously I'm not Golden State, I don't make decisions there, but if I were them, I would definitely look at offers. And if I can get an established guy, and I give the number 1 pick and maybe another, player that I don't mind getting rid of, like an Andrew Wiggins, to bring back another star, yeah. But I mean, if you look at this draft class, it is one of the weaker classes.
Yeah.
So a lot of those guys, I think, have one skill set. They're not multi-skill set like a lot of guys you saw in the past. There are some good players, so I'm not trying to knock anybody and say like they can't play, but I'm just saying I think this is one of the drafts that's nowhere near the depth. So you're not going to have the same level of pop in day 1 and play and make a difference talent. Some guy like a Wiseman, I mentioned multiple times, he's a big, you can have him learn 1 or 2 things: rebound, crash the boards, play defense, use his athleticism, and then bring him along as the season comes along around another core of good players. And I think that would be a benefit for Golden State. Also think about the fact that he's going to come on a rookie contract. So the biggest benefit for Golden State is, at some point, you're going to have to pay Steph Curry more money. At some point, I don't know if he's signed yet or not, but you're going to have to play Klay Thompson. I don't know how many more years he has. He's probably going to want a little bit more money. So you got to think about those aspects of it as well. And if they're chasing the championship that bad, then yeah, you try to bring in another star. But I think you may be fine once you get all your firepower back. You try to re-up on the bench and draft, for that center position. That may be the best way for Golden State to go. But we'll see what they think once they evaluate their roster.
Yeah. So we are about the 35-minute mark here. So I know we still got a lot of other topics to cover, so we'll go ahead and move on. So I was looking through our topic list, and I hadn't had a chance to actually see the story yet because I've actually been in a conference all day today, uh, virtual conference. People don't worry. And but but you put on here that apparently the NCAA is planning on doing a special tournament for college basketball. So talk to me a little bit about that. What's going on?
So it's still in the preliminary stages, but what they're thinking about is doing a bubble environment for the college basketball tournament. Um, we had scheduled, we didn't get a chance to talk about it the week we scheduled it to talk about, but we had talked about how, well, we were going to talk about how the conferences were thinking about doing that for conference play. So there may be adjusted schedules for the conferences where you're playing your conference schedule like in a bubble. And there may be, like, say, the ACC is all playing MEAC teams. They may say, okay, well, we're all going to play, so let's find a site and let's get all the teams together, test them and everything, and let everybody play who's going to play. That's that sort of thing. So there may be some adjustments to the schedule. And for tournament play, they're talking about a bubble. But even if that does not happen, what the NCAA is at least floating around is having the tournament itself in bubbles. So still have the regions for now as they normally do, but have it in bubbles. So you each have your own bubble that you're in for each region. So if you're in the South and Atlanta's that area, then the bubble would be in Atlanta for that region. You go there, you get your testing and everything, just kind of similar to what the NBA's done. Then all the regions would do that. And then you would be, of course, coming together for the Final Four at that site. And they would make it, from what I read, one of those 4 bubble sites would be the Final Four. So they would decide on one of the bubble sites because you'd already have it sterilized, you'd already have it prepared and ready. And that would be the Final Four bubble site as well. But just essentially them kind of looking at the model that the NBA's done and how it's been successful so far, and thinking if we want to make sure we can have a tournament next year, maybe we should adopt that model. So yeah, the gist of what it is a little bit more to it, but just the gist of what it is, and we can always talk about it more after we get more info in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny when you think about the fact that last season we didn't have a tournament, and then now that the NBA they had the time to put this bubble concept together, they've been able to go out and apply it. We've been able to see that it works. Now all of a sudden, college basketball is like, oh, okay. I mean, obviously we could have gotten this last year, because originally it was going to be, oh, we'll just play without fans in the stands. And so you basically were doing a bubble anyways. You were doing a bubble-esque. It was just that you didn't have all the parameters around it. So it is kind of interesting to see how we basically come full circle back to this idea with college basketball, because that was the first major sport that was impacted by all this.
Yeah, the only thing I say about college basketball is I do feel bad for the players and for, the NCAA as a whole, because it's essentially, you thought it was something that was not going to be a big deal, and it just kind of exploded and it shut a lot of things down.
Yeah.
And, they just had no prep time. Like, there was no time to come up with anything.
Yeah.
We talk about Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, NFL. Everyone else had time. Even NCAA football, they had time in the fall sports. They had time to come up with solutions.
Yeah.
The tournament, it hit right when the tournament was about to start. So there wasn't really nothing they were going to be able to do to have it, which is disappointing. But it sounds like they've been watching, maybe bouncing ideas, and this is the one they came up with that they feel like will work the best. So hopefully, they do make that happen. Hopefully, they have the tournament bubbles for the conferences as well. And we may see some schedules change to where we have mostly conference games for college basketball too this year. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and I did see too that something we talked about when they had kind of floated the idea out when all this started about maybe extending out eligibility for a lot of these guys. I see they did go ahead and actually go through with that, where for all fall athletes they're going to grant them an extra year of eligibility in the NCAA. So that's good. You're gonna still have some guys I think will still go pro if they got the opportunity to, of course. But it's good for some of those guys who maybe they need that extra year to show what they can do. And this gives them the opportunity to go out there and be able to maybe raise their draft stock up a little bit. So I definitely feel like it's a good thing. I don't think every player is going to take advantage of it, obviously, but for the people who do need it, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's great for players in the conferences that are going to play, that have the opportunity to have that extra year. So in case the year doesn't pan out the way they want it to, they can do that. Now, interesting thing that was brought up in regards to this was on my local radio station today. They were discussing how what we should do is for players who want to transfer to a school that is going to be playing football players, either because they feel like that they can go to the NFL this coming season and they want to highlight their talents, show off their talents, or they want to have the this year and next year to play at that new school, that they should be allowed to go without and get a waiver and be able to transfer to another university. I think that that's a excellent idea. I know a lot of people may be like, blah 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 blah. But if you're a guy that's a top fit pick, like a Justin Fields,
Yeah.
Quarterbacks, a lot of those guys where you kind of know what you're getting with those guys, Trevor Lawson, those guys, you don't have to do it. I meant to say Lawrence. I apologize.
Yeah,
Trevor
yeah.
Lawrence and those
I
guys.
was, I was about to say, who's Trevor Lawson?
Yeah, my bad. But I actually had a Trevor Lawson I talked to today at work, so it kind of got stuck in my mind. But those guys don't really need it. But there could be some other guys in some of the smaller conferences that really need to play this year. And if you're not going to have football, then they should be allowed to. They can leave and go to another school and be able to play this fall. If they're going to school that's playing. So I think that's something that should be discussed. It should be done. I think it's the right thing to do by the kids who want to go and play. Now, obviously, you may have some that say, no, I'm just not going to go play. I'd rather just take the year off.
Yeah.
For you, if you want to transfer, then you can transfer and just kind of, take the year off and wait. But for those who want to transfer and play immediately, I think that should be an option for them, because if this is, they feel like their opportunity, they shouldn't lose that due to what's going on when there are some conferences who are still playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's a nice thing, man. Is that it's like you said, it's just going to give those guys an extra opportunity to be able to still go out there and actually play and get that experience. Or in the case if they're not playing, it gives them the opportunity to still come back and get that year in to be able to improve themselves. So we don't get the NCAA credit mostly because they don't deserve much, but. This is one of those rare instances where they actually did do what was in the interest of the players. And I'm sure that there was some other reasons behind the scenes that were not because of the benefit of the players that ultimately drove this decision. But nonetheless, it is something that ultimately did benefit the players. All about that money, man. All about that money.
I mean, if we're being real about it, we can be nice and we can say the NCAA great job and all that. But if you're Ohio State, Michigan, a lot of those teams, Pac-12 teams as well, teams that have decided to cancel their season or play in spring. Your best players are not playing in spring. They're not going to do it. They're going to be getting ready for the NFL if they're going to the NFL. If they're not, they can't win a national championship, because as we've seen, the polls are starting to just take those teams out and just put the teams from the conferences that are playing in, basically telling you, hey, we're going to have a national champion and it's going to be a team that plays in the fall. So there's really not much reason for all those players to play, right? And honestly, I think by the time the spring comes around, because the other conferences didn't do it, if you're talking about the smaller schools who may just want to get the revenue from playing football, they may play. If they have games against some of those bigger teams, they may want those games. But I think if you're those bigger conferences, unless you really just want to be the conference champ, there's not a lot of incentive for a lot of your best players to play. So them being able to play next year and actually play during the regular time frame and have a chance to, play for national championship is definitely a big plus. But it's all about money at the end of the day. You want the best players. If you can keep some names, you want to keep them. If you can put out a better team next year, you want to do it. That's what it's really about.
Absolutely. Well, man, we've got about 15 minutes left, and I know you been wanting to talk about a little baseball, so I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over to you and let you be our resident baseball expert.
So I get a chance to, just chop up a little bit on baseball, guys. We don't get too deep into baseball conversations. We actually don't talk about baseball too much on the show. It's something we're working on, at least being a little more versed in. So the big thing I just want to talk about today with everybody is just standings where people are at. We're about third of the way through the season, around 20 games most people have played. Of course, with two very important caveats: the Cardinals and the Miami Marlins, who of course have had some issues with Corona. So I'm not including them in the standings just because there's so fewer games that they've played. They're going to be higher because a lot of teams have had more games, so they've had more opportunities to lose, have more losses, but also have more wins. So when you kind of look at it, I'll start with the American League in the East. You're pretty much looking at a two-team race right now between the Rays and the Yankees, with the Rays being up about half a game. Interesting because, a lot of times the Yankees are the team you always think about when you think about the AL East. You had the Red Sox for a while, not this year at all. They're at the bottom. So that's a little bit of a different situation from what you're used to. They haven't been great the past few years, but they've at least been, kind of in the middle of the pack. So they're falling down. You look at the Central, it's probably the most wide open as of now. You have the Twins, Indians, and White Sox all within 2 games of each other. And then with the new playoff format, they're all fighting for, obviously, a chance to get in the playoffs, even if you don't win a division. But that seems to be a little bit more of a heated rivalry right now, something that can keep going. And then you look at the other teams, they're about 4 games back. It's important when you talk about being 4 games back or 2.5 games back or whatever, that you realize that with this shortened season, this is about roughly a third of a regular season for baseball. So all these games are way more important. So where you're looking at people at 20 games in, gives you at least a reasonable expectation of where a lot of the teams may go. Of course, some teams can go on a win streak, losing streak, and kind of change their position. But you're kind of looking at things being what they're going to be. Then you get into the AL West, pretty much a 2-team race between the Athletics and the Astros. Astros 2.5 games back. They played 1 less game and lost a couple more games, so hence the 2.5 games back. And then you start looking at the wild card, or I guess whatever you want to call it this year. But some of the teams I mentioned, and then you got some more teams in the AL East in there for that, like the Blue Jays and Orioles. They're in that mix for that, as well as the Rangers, and the Royals. So when you look at the American League, it's still pretty open, but you're kind of starting to see a division among teams. And you hop over to the NL, start with the NL East. And the most important teams right now in the NL East is based off wins and losses. Of course, we're not counting the Marlins, who are now in second place due to losing to my Braves. You got the Braves at number 1 in the NL East. Marlins are number 2 right now, just based off win percentage. And then the Mets are third. So you have the Mets, the Braves, and the Marlins. Really, the Mets and the Braves, the Marlins have just as many wins as the Phillies and Nationals, just less losses because they lost some games to the Corona. They'll have to figure out how to try to make those up. When you go to the Central, you got the Cubs in first. You've got the Cardinals in second, but they actually have the second most wins in their division. You have the Brewers. They're about 4 games back of the Cubs, but still doable. And then you have the Reds. Brewers and the Reds are obviously also going to be in play for those extra playoff spots that they're going to be doing this year. And then you go to the West, which looks to be probably the most competitive. Everybody in that division has at least 11 wins. Obviously, the difference between top and bottom is 8 games, but they look to all at least be in contention for those playoff spots. The Dodgers and Padres are the top 2. And then the Rockies are kind of hanging in the middle. Then you got the Diamondbacks and Giants. So you have a lot of teams at this point that are still, within contention, which is important. Once you start to get a little bit through the season, you want to kind of see the importance of wins and losses in any sport, especially baseball, short season, as I said before. So it's definitely something to monitor, keep an eye on. We'll talk more about certain aspects of baseball in the future, but just at least wanted to kind of touch on the topic of baseball and kind of where teams are sitting right now. I know we have a couple of baseball listeners that may or may not be watching the show, but at least, we want to try to cover all the sports. If sports guy, you want to kind of be able to talk a little bit of everything there, boxing, MMA, baseball, soccer. You just want to be versatile for everybody. So this is our versatility showing through.
Yeah, I mean, and man, I'm not really much of a baseball person, but I've heard other people talk baseball, and I've listened to a lot of baseball conversations. But one of the things that kind of interests me as a I don't even want to use the word fan as part of this as part of the sentence, but
A casual watcher.
As a casual watcher of baseball is, you hear a lot in baseball about rotations, especially when it comes to the pitching. And over the course of a full season, you obviously have kind of a pacing for, how often you want your pitchers to come in, how many innings you want to pitch, and all that kind of stuff. So you have kind of a management idea of how you want to manage all that. But with this being a shortened season, with the games being so close to each other, it just is one of those things. It's going to be interesting to see towards the end of the year, especially the pitching. For some of the teams that especially don't have deep pitching bullpens, it's going to be really interesting to see how they might wear down as the season kind of gets into the last third instead of the first third. Because I think you're going to really start to see the separation of the top teams at that point. And I think this year, probably more so than any other, your pitching staff is going to be super vital to your chances of winning the championship this year. I mean, I know it's always an important thing. Anybody who listens to anything about baseball knows that pitching is always important to win championships. But I think this year the emphasis is going to be so much more on it, especially having not just one or two quality guys, but actually having that depth at the position.
Yeah, I mean, you listen now, you talk sports with people, you hear about baseball, and you talk about how now you can have a 2-3 game series with the team and miss their top two pitchers. Yep. So rotations are definitely important. Bullpens are definitely important. Like you said, injuries. Guys may be getting more innings in a shorter period of time than you really want them to have. Or you having a game where you say, I really would, if I had this guy that could pitch today, I'm pretty confident, but I don't want to wear his arm out or his shoulder or anything with this condensed scheduling. So there'll be a lot more chess that needs to be played. And I've watched, some baseball games and kind of seen that where you kind of just, you even hear the commentators saying like, if they could play such and such, but he pitched some innings last night, and you kind of want to save guys. So they're having to approach it way different than you normally would. Yeah. So it'll be interesting, and I do agree with what you're saying. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the year. Hitting wise as well, guys not getting a lot of injuries in the field because they're pushing themselves to a point that they haven't in the past. They haven't played this many games that close together before. They normally have a series, have a couple of days off. So they're pushing themselves a lot more than normal too. So just injuries, overall, but especially like you said, pitching staff, the depth of their staff, and keeping everyone healthy in your staff is going to be, of extreme importance. And not getting suspended. I know we've had a couple of silly fights in baseball, not making bad decisions, those type of things where it normally doesn't hurt if you get suspended for 5 games. You could really screw your team with that this year. So guys have to be a little bit smarter, more level-headed with that as well.
Yeah. For sure, especially with the shortened season, 5 games now is a whole lot. So you don't want to be missing that many games now. It might be that you're seeing your team make the playoffs or not. So you definitely don't want to do that. So we got to talk about your favorite team now. Your favorite new mascot. the Washington football team.
Washington seems to be in the news. Like what I've seen from the football team so far, man, it's just like something really bad happens and then something good happens, or vice versa. It's like they never can just get on one thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you just never can have one thing with them. They hired a new team president, first Black, team president in league history. So you're like, cool. He's a guy that actually played the game. He was a running back. knows the ins and outs. He actually left the game when he got experience in management, finance, and things like that. So he's someone that has kind of both sides of it. So he has the pedigree to be able to do it because he has experience of what he learned after he left playing football. And he also can relate to the players in a way that a lot of other people can't because he's been on that side as well.
Yeah.
So, kudos to him for that. But just as we hear about that, I'm like, oh, cool. Washington's doing something that's different, that's unique, showing that they're, care about diversity. We find out Ron Rivera's got cancer.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if you're a fan of the football team, bro, you're just like, what in the world? We ain't got a name. Our coach, and basically the guy, because the way the new president is going to work is he's basically going to handle business operations.
Yeah.
He'll have, from my understanding, slight dealings in the football side, but for the most part, he's going to handle that side because the whole problem with Bruce Allen was he kind of had too much in his plate, and he kind of just, and that's what may have led to some of the things that happened. But with this new guy, you're going to have that split. But I mean, you hear good news and then bad news.
Yeah.
Bad for him, man.
I mean, fortunately, man, they are saying that they're catching it early, so hopefully, that's something that he'll be able to get taken care of, and he'll be good to go. Definitely keeping him in the prayers. So, hopefully the best for him. They did get one other good story out there though, which
Yes,
we
it
touched
did.
on a little bit a couple weeks ago. That Alex Smith has actually managed to bounce back from his injury, which that in and of itself is already surprising that he was even able to come back. But he's out there. He's going to be competing for the starting job. We said a couple weeks ago, neither one of us are going to be surprised if he wins it, and we both agree that they're a much better team if he does.
Yeah, like I said a few weeks ago, you get Alex Smith back there confident playing quarterback. I'm much more concerned with Washington than I am with Dwayne Haskins. And that's no slight to Dwayne Haskins, but you don't have nowhere near the experience or just the understanding of playing that position in NFL that Alex Smith does. And I think it could benefit Haskins if Smith comes in and wins the job from him because you're not having someone who can't really outplay you get the job. You're actually having somebody that probably can outplay you get the job, and you get a chance to sit under him and learn. And Smith has shown in the past that he doesn't mind being a mentor, understanding at some point he may lose the job to the person he's mentoring.
Yeah.
I actually watched his story again. I think it was last weekend it came on. And man, I gotta tell you, this guy almost lost his leg. He had a point in time where he probably had no leg left. And they were like, a day or two away from amputating this man's leg. For him to come back from that, get ligaments from other parts of his body, skin grafts, all kinds of things. This guy had to actually go, and I didn't know this from watching it the first time because I missed this part. He was in such bad shape. They allowed him to go to the Army hospital in DC, where you only have trauma patients who have had like lost limbs or like stepped on mines, like really bad situations.
Yeah.
His leg was in such bad shape, they allowed him to go there and do rehab and talk with them for like a couple of weeks. And that's something that they normally don't allow people who have had like an injury, an active military injury go. So it was really, really bad for him, man. And to see him come back, not a fan of the football team whatsoever, but to see that man come back and fight through that, man, you just have to respect that. He's never been a problem anywhere he's been. So you just got to respect that.
Yeah. I mean, I said it a few weeks ago, man, going back to when he was in San Francisco, a lot of people forget that we were playing really well. He was playing at a very high level. He got injured. Kaepernick came in, set the league on fire. And when Alex Smith was ready to come back, they decided to keep Kaepernick in, even though they could easily justify going back to Alex Smith because, like I said, he was playing really well before the injury, and the team was playing well and winning games. So they could have done that. They decided not to, and he could have complained about it. He could have demanded trades. He could have did all kind of stuff. Instead, he supported Cap and he helped mentor him. And I gained a lot of respect for Alex Smith and the way he handled that situation. So I don't normally root for any player once they're not on my team anymore. But he's definitely a guy that I would like to see do well, unless they're playing the 49ers, and then I hope he gets destroyed. But or at least on the scoreboard, not not physically, but on the scoreboard.
No more injuries for Alex Smith, bro. We don't
Yeah,
want any
yeah,
more injuries
yeah,
for him.
yeah. May you lead the game healthy, but a loser. That's that would be my hope, and I'm sure you feel the same way about when they play the Eagles. So
I feel the same way about when they play. The last thing we want is Alex Smith led team a game behind you at the end of the season, feeling confident. Now you go ahead and lose. It's good.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
Well, man, that brings us to the end of our show. We actually managed to get all of our topics in tonight, so always a good thing. Want to real quickly give a shout out to everyone who joined us live tonight. Uh, really appreciate y'all tuning in. You know, want to see that chat box blowing up a little bit more though every week, man. We love to be able to interact with y'all. So make sure you drop in your comments, your questions in the chat box live with us during the show. That way we can interact with you and have some fun with it. And throughout the week, man, if you guys want to drop comments, let us know topics that you want to hear about. You can definitely do that. So, but make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button too.
Yes, subscribe button is very important. So let's get that rocking. And I get it right now. We may not have as many people live. Got the playoff going on. First live sport. It's a big sport for a lot of people, and not baseball, but more people just watching basketball right now. So let's just be real. So it's all good. I understand people are watching it, man. But check us out. The shows are there. You can always come back and watch them later. If you tune in late or you miss it, it's all good. Just check out what we got going on, man. Leave your comments. We try to go back through, check comments, see if there's anything that people want to talk about that they haven't. We have a group on Facebook as well. If you want to join that, you can talk with us there, talk with other people in our community, and just try to have a little fun with it. Enjoy sports. We're starting to get live again. Fantasy football is coming up for the fantasy football heads. I know y'all excited about that. And let's just have some fun with sports, man. That's what we're here for. To be interactive. We want to be different. We want to be interactive. We want you guys to tell us what you want to hear, what you want to talk about, and that's what we'll talk about.
Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and throw it out there, man. If y'all want to talk some fantasy football on the show, maybe starting next week, because I know some drafts starting to happen and will be happening next week. So, if you guys want to throw out some fantasy football questions, maybe we'll set aside a little time on the show, like a little dedicated segment during the course of football season, just to talk some fantasy football. And so that way, can impart our wisdom on you. You were looking between the two of us, about probably 15, 20 fantasy football championships. So, I feel like we know our stuff.
Not to toot my own horn, but victories seem to happen quite a bit.
But man, as always, I gotta remind y'all that even the sun goes down,
heroes eventually die,
and horoscopes, they often lie.
But sometimes why?
Nothing is for show.
Nothing is for certain.
But until they close the curtain,
it's him and I.
The play callers. Y'all better know that.
From the QC to the ATL.
Yeah. Y'all tune in live next Friday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The PlayCallerSportsTalk.com.
Y'all better know that. Do that.